So for my garbology project, I decided to make a flower vase using bottles and a buzzball as the vase. I went ahead and rinsed out my soda cans or bottles, and I'm going to be using a hot glue gun and a box cutter blade knife thing. I first started by taking off all of the labels, which I will be using later on. Here I am making a mess. I'm very clumsy. This took maybe like 30 seconds to do. It wasn't very long. And I just repeated the process with all of the water bottles, or the soda bottles, but I kept the plastic for later. So next, I'm going to be using some chopsticks that we had laying around that we don't really use. And I went ahead and used the box cutter to cut off the edges. I made a little slit, and then I went around and cut with scissors because I tried cutting with a blade and I almost cut my finger off. And I just went ahead and did that with the top and the bottom of the bottles and repeated that with all of them except for the buzzball, which I will be using as a vase. So here I have all of my cylinders, and I just cut them down the middle, and then later on I'll be cutting them in half just to cut out my petals. I used a cardboard box as a stencil to trace out my petals, and I struggled a little bit. Here in the background is my boyfriend's mom, who saw me struggling to cut everything, and she saw me almost cut my finger, so she was nice enough to help me. I went ahead and cut about 15 petals because I only used a couple for my flowers. I didn't need that many. And here I'm going to be showing you what I was planning to do with the plastic from those soda bottles. So I started with hot gluing the edge and wrapping the plastic around, making it look like a stem for my flowers. And then I just repeated that process for the 3 flowers I decided to make. I had planned to make more, but as I started placing them in the bottle, I realized I didn't have enough space, and I kept burning my fingers when I was melting my plastic and stuff, so I just decided to make 3. And here we're just wrapping the plastic around the chopstick with hot glue just to hold it in place. And I just had to be very careful because it was really hot when I pressed down on it. So here's what they look like. I wanted to use the plastic wrapping to incorporate the fact that I did use soda cans or soda bottles. For the center of the flower, I went ahead and cut a rectangle of the soda bottles out, and I cut little slits into it and melted the edge so that they would bend and stick out like the center of like a hibiscus flower kind of. And then I went ahead and melted my petals off of the off camera because I kept burning myself because I couldn't really see. And I started to stick the edges on with a little bit of hot glue, and I was struggling to hold it on, so here I am moving it off of the camera frame to fix it myself a little bit better. Yeah, I struggled a little bit to keep them in place until the hot glue dried. And then I ended up needing my boyfriend to hold a lighter on so I could be able to melt more petals to stick onto my flowers because, like I repeatedly said, I'm very clumsy and I kept burning my fingers. The plastic was very hot. And so I went ahead and just glued them around the edges of the centers of the flowers. And I just repeated this process with about 3 to 4 petals per flower. It was a little bit more difficult towards like the second flower, even though I had already gotten the hang of it. Here I am showing you how I stuck a couple of them on and layered them to make it look more full. As you can see, I'm also getting the hot glue off of my fingers. Next, here I am going to be cutting off the leaves that I'm going to be using for my flowers. I went ahead and used the 7-Up bottle since the plastic was green, and just repeated the process of cutting out the same sized petals and melting them so that they would welt a little bit into the shape of a leaf, and stuck them around the edges of my flowers. Here is what the flower should look like at the end. I went ahead and made 3, and so my vase looked kind of plain, so I decided to cut the edge of a soda bottle off and melted it as well. I cut little slits into it and held it over the fire, and then I just decided to hot glue it around the edge of the bottle to give it a little bit more detail. And it wasn't sticking, and I was struggling, and here's my boyfriend's mom moving everything out of the way because it was very messy. She let me borrow her kitchen, by the way, because my house, I'm the oldest of 7, and it's too noisy, and like siblings run in and out of my room and don't let me do anything in peace. And so I went ahead and added more green petals around the edge to make it look a little bit more detailed, because there was a couple of gaps between the plastic pieces. And I was originally going to paint it, but I liked the way it kind of ended up looking like a strawberry at the end, even though it is also a strawberry flavored buzzball. And here is the finished product. It's 3 flowers, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was a very frustrating process because I kept hurting myself, but thank you.